Hi, second grade social studies teachers. My name is Kelly, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the Inquiry in Social Studies unit for second grade. This is the first social studies unit of the year, takes 12 to 16 days to complete, has 11 lessons, each of which are planned to last 20 to 30 minutes in length. In this unit, students learn how to think and act like a social scientist. It focuses on all of the inquiry standards, including the taking informed action standards. The main focus of this unit is on Norman Borlaug, who is also featured in a later unit. Connections to Kate Shelley can be made during the first chapter of this unit. This unit is all about the inquiry standards for second grade. Students will learn more about compelling and supporting questions, how to use primary and secondary sources, and how to analyze sources and figure out who created them and why. This unit is unique in that the compelling and supporting questions listed here are not shared directly with the students. They are there to help focus and structure the unit from the instructional standpoint. This is the unit question map. As you can see, the main goal for this unit is that students will learn to think like a social scientist. These are skills that students began to develop in kindergarten and first grade and will continue in second grade and on to third. Each of the supporting questions builds a specific skill related to the overall goal. There is a formative assessment for each supporting question, but there is no summative assessment for this unit, as the formatives provide the data needed to know if students are meeting the expectations. If you would like more information about using the question map or about compelling and supporting questions, please watch the videos linked in the description below. Let's talk through the lessons. For this, we use the unit plan and not the question map. If you'd like more information about how to use the unit plan, please watch the corresponding video found on the Teaching Social Studies playlist or linked in the description for this video. In this unit, we can see that our sequence of lessons are divided into chapters based on supporting questions. These chapters are linked to other sections within the document, and chapter information is included at the beginning of each, followed by individual lessons and then the formative. So chapter 1 we can see is all about social scientists. We're focusing on who are social scientists and what do they do. Students are going to learn about the geographer, economist, historian, and political scientist. And we're using a picture of the Shelley family homestead, so this is a time to connect Kate Shelley if so desired. There is a slideshow that goes along with this unit, and I would recommend using it along with the unit plan since the unit plan provides the specific instructions for teaching. Lesson 1 begins with asking students if they've ever wondered why is the sky blue, who invented stickers, and how many Legos would it take to fill up a school bus. You can ask more types of questions like this, the very big, curious, overall type questions. Then you move on to ask students what you need to do to be able to answer one of these questions. This moves into a discussion on inquiry and what it means. In Lesson 2, you take students through a WDIS, or What Do I See, image analysis of this image here of the Kate Shelley family homestead. If you would like to know more about how to complete a WDIS, please watch the corresponding video that can be found in the Teaching Social Studies playlist and in this video's description. After looking at the picture, explain to students that they're going to be social scientists and begin that conversation of what a social scientist is. In Lesson 3, students look at a few pictures and try to determine which social scientist would be most interested in each. Then they complete a worksheet called Thinking Like a. In this case, that means thinking like a social scientist. To complete this worksheet that works as a formative assessment, you need to give a picture. Again, it's the Shelley Homestead picture, and encourage students to write a question that each of the social scientists would ask. And you can see there's a spot for geographer, historian, economist, and political scientist. In chapter 2, we move on from who social scientists are to what they need to know. This is when we spend a lot of time working with the first 4 inquiry standards, as well as Standard 22, being able to work with primary and secondary sources and figure out the context clues of who created it, when, what, where, and why. Lesson 4 begins with a review of the 4 social scientists, and then we're going to ask what a social scientist needs to know how to do. And there are 3 pieces that we will provide for the students. Social scientist needs to ask questions, find appropriate resources, and answer the questions using the resources. So then we start by the asking questions, which is learning about compelling questions. So again, we provide a review of this, something that students had learned about in kindergarten and first grade. We're going to give a compelling question that is not the one for this unit, but how can one person help change the world? This is a compelling question that comes up in a later social studies unit. In Lesson 5, we move on from the compelling question, and we try another strategy called the question formulation technique, or QFT, in order to have students generate supporting questions, which is another of our social studies standards for this year. I would recommend doing this as a whole class, unless your students are really strong question writers at this point. In the QFT, the general rule is that you're going to set a timer, maybe 5 minutes or so for this first round. You're going to generate as many questions as you can. You don't stop for any reason. And if a question is presented more as a sentence, you just switch it into a question format. There is a video in our Teaching Social Studies playlist, and of course linked in this video's description, that goes more in depth over how to complete the QFT. There's a video in our Teaching Social Studies playlist that goes over QFT and WDIS. It's about using primary and secondary sources and some strategies to source. In Lesson 6, students take those supporting questions that they created in Lesson 5 and start thinking about what types of items they would need in order to help answer those questions. This leads into learning about primary and secondary resources, which students learned about a little bit in first grade, but this is the time they really dig into them. Lesson 7 is all about primary versus secondary sources and how to use them, and students will start using this Norman Borlaug text set to continue primary and secondary sources. They start by simply sourcing the items in this text set. So the timeline, the picture, and the article. In Lesson 8, we move on from primary versus secondary to learning about if a source is fact or opinion. This means that we need to know the who, what, when, where, why, how side of things, and again, use the Norman Borlaug text set to go through and figure out who created it, what is it, when was it created, etc. Again, more information about how to do this can be found in that primary and secondary sources video. Lesson 9 is your formative assessment, in which you have students answer the compelling question, how can one person help change the world? You can do this in lots of different ways. You can simply have them write it here, or maybe you have them draw a picture to support their answer, or maybe students use Seesaw. The whole goal is that you're trying to use evidence from the picture, timeline, and article in order to help answer the question, which works with another one of the social studies inquiry standards. Chapter 3 is about how the students can be like a social scientist. So in this, we're going to look at our taking informed action inquiry standards, which are standards 5 and 6, and students are going to use democratic procedures to make decisions about a civic problem in their classroom, and they're going to take group or individual action to help address a problem. So in Lesson 10, review what a political scientist does, as that best meets our taking informed action standards. Then you're going to talk about what type of problem there might be in your classroom or in school. If students are having trouble, maybe you can offer a suggestion like, we're having trouble taking turns, or we have a messy area of the room, or we have trouble when we're in line, something to that effect. Then ask students how we should decide which problem to solve. Hopefully someone says we should vote on it. If not, provide that prompt for students, as this is the democratic procedure that we would want to use in practice. After the vote and following discussion are completed, move on to the taking action idea. Explain that this means doing something to make something better. You can give very specific examples of some kids who are known for taking actions, such as the Scouts, volunteers, Malala, Greta, and there's 2 others listed there that you can explore. In Lesson 11, have students work in small groups to come up with a solution to solve the class problem. Have students create a visual and give a short presentation. This presentation and visual works as the formative for this particular chapter. Thank you for watching this video about the Inquiry in Social Studies unit. Be sure to check out the other videos in this playlist and the links in the description. Please reach out to your PLC leader, instructional coach, or curriculum facilitator if you have any questions or would like some more information or support.